TSA is reportedly working with Customs and Border Patrol to allow migrants to fly without any kind of proper ID. DHS is responding to Abbott having more razor wire put up by saying Republicans are dangerous and must be defeated.
I'm Stephanie Keith.
And I am Tara Manjakovic. And we are unapologetically outspoken.
Hello, everyone, and happy Friday. So today, Stephanie and I thought we would have a little conversation about our fantastic national security in the United States. And by fantastic, I mean pretty much complete lack thereof. So we've talked at length on this podcast about the total hypocrisy of the Biden administration and the left when it comes to stuff like illegal migrants and how they're not held accountable to the same laws and standards that American citizens have to follow. They don't have to follow legal channels to enter the country. They've displaced American citizens in shelters and hotels throughout the country. We've talked about this on multiple episodes for at least the past year. Kids have been sent home from school. Parents are told they have to homeschool their children so that now we can start accommodating housing migrants in educational facilities. And now it seems that we are also allowing migrants to freely travel with no identification. So it was revealed earlier this week that the TSA is reportedly working with Customs and Border Patrol to allow migrants to fly without any kind of proper ID. And I read an article in American Military News that was saying the TSA is basically allowing migrants to identify themselves through the CBP-1 app. And we've talked about this app in the past. And it's basically they're being allowed to use this as valid non-citizen travel documentation if they don't have ID. And on top of that, the TSA basically made it optional for illegal migrants to have their photo taken. And they're not going to store the migrants' information. They're only going to use it to verify that the information they're providing is what was initially provided to the CBP, which I'm sure was often false to begin with. I was reading the story in the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, and it was talking about how the current vetting process that border security does is basically none at all. So according to the author, quote, when a person crosses the border and cannot provide any physical identification, they are asked to verbally provide a name, birth date, and country of origin. If the information is not found in Border Patrol's database, our government accepts this information as their true identity and issues them an identification card, further cementing their potentially false identity, end quote. So we have no idea who these people actually are. Another issue we've discussed at length on this podcast, and now we're just letting them get on planes and travel throughout the country with no ID. Stephanie, this would be like me saying, I'm just going to use my Costco card to get on a plane, right? Because it has my name on it and my pictures on it. And I had to fill out a form and provide Costco with information to get the card. So should this suffice as national security clearance for me?
Yeah, I mean, it's totally backwards. Like, look at how many hoops you had to jump through to go to Europe. And yet they can just come here like no big deal. And obviously, if you're a terrorist or something, you're going to give a false ID. Like, this is so stupid. And it just makes me mad because just like you said, these migrants don't have to follow the same rules that us tax-paying citizens do. It's so aggravating. But speaking of TSA, I got to bring up, and just like migrants traveling, I have been seeing these videos going around TikTok, and it's driving me crazy because they keep getting removed. But it's people that are going into airports in the United States at night and are witnessing grown adult men escorting groups of migrant children through the airport. And they go up and they approach these men and ask, who do you work for? What government agency? What company? And the men like literally laugh in their face and refuse to answer. And then the one video that I watched, the people who were recording the video, they even went and got TSA involved. And they asked TSA, how can you just stand by and let this happen? Like, clearly, it appears that these children are being trafficked. And TSA just shrugs and says it's out of their hands. There's nothing they can do. Like, this is beyond disturbing. And we know, I mean, it's on record that Biden administration officials admitted under oath that they lost over 85,000 migrant children. And then we see this footage of adult men escorting dozens of children through airports in the middle of the night, and everyone just turns a blind eye. Like, this is so despicable. It makes me sick.
Yeah, because the TSA is yet another three-letter agency that's on board with everything the Biden admin is doing. And I didn't make any notes on this, but I just read something, I think it was yesterday, about how the number of lost migrant children is now over 100,000, just unaccompanied minors just throughout the country. And it beyond despicable. Like I can't even fathom how we allow this shit to happen in our country. And Dave Rubin, he's a reporter, podcaster, whatever. He does the Rubin Report. And he was at the Miami International Airport earlier this week, and he posted a picture of this new policy that the TSA has. He posted it on X, and I guess it's like this program they're doing at several airports throughout the country. And he wrote, quote, "This is the state of absolute insanity happening at our airports. I'm in the pre-TSA line where migrants don't have an ID to get through security, and it's their choice whether they want their picture taken. There is a plan to destroy America," end quote. And that same article I was reading also talked about how former Customs and Border Patrol Chief Patrol Agent Chris Clem, he's basically expressing concern about this new policy that the Biden admin created. And he told the New York Post, quote, "I'm an American citizen, and I'm quite offended that these migrants have come in here and are getting preferential treatment and being prioritized in so many ways. The rest of us are paying the price at gas pumps and the grocery store, taxes going up, yet the U.S. continues to bring masses of people in," end quote, just like we say all the time. And so my boyfriend, Senator Josh Hawley, he sent a letter to the TSA administrator. I guess his name is David Pekoski. And he sent a letter on Monday basically calling out the TSA for undermining national security. And in the letter, he wrote, quote, "If this report is accurate, this is outrageous. Millions of Americans are subject to the TSA screening process, which is often a burdensome, long inconvenience, which also includes photo identification. But every day, Americans take on this burden to increase the safety of their fellow passengers. It makes no sense to give special privileges to illegal migrants who should not even be allowed in the United States in the first place, let alone to board U.S. aircraft. This is symbolic of the Biden administration's prioritization of open border policies over American safety," end quote. And I love how Hawley refers to that app, the CBP app. He calls it a concierge service for illegal immigration. Because
it is. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah. And I have not been able to find any response from the Biden admin or the TSA on this issue at all. Like, it's just radio silence.
Well, Biden's probably in Delaware, on vacation or in his basement hiding, who knows. But yeah, Tucker Carlson did a segment on the migrants in Chicago, and his team found a secret terminal where they're housing migrants right in O'Hare Airport. So it's like, just think about this for a second. This is a place that's supposed to have the tightest security anywhere. And they have a camp of illegal migrants living there. And when Tucker's team went and tried filming, they were told that they're not allowed, but they did get a clip of this whole terminal sectioned off with a curtain, and there were beds all over the floor. They said the smell was repulsive. Like, clearly it was not sanitary conditions. And yet they're allowing this to go on in one of the biggest international airports in the country. And also in Chicago, his team then went around and they discovered the same exact thing was happening in Chicago police stations, where they were housing migrants on the floors. And it's the same thing that's happening with like Border Patrol. Instead of worrying about the community's safety, they end up being caretakers, and it's absolutely ridiculous. So I started looking up some articles from the Chicago suburbs where I'm from, and I found that in Oak Brook, from October 23rd to January 17th, 47 migrants were arrested for property crimes, retail theft, and burglary. And we're talking about a nice, small, quiet suburb that's dealing with crimes that they've never had to deal with before. And then you have Naperville, which is one of the wealthier suburbs, and one of the councilmen is asking their residents to volunteer to take in migrants to their homes, just like they did in New York. And it's like, really, like, I'm sure that's what people want, a city that's already plagued with crime. And yeah, they're just supposed to take in illegal migrants that they know nothing about. It's crazy.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw let's see how many families actually take migrants into their
Right.
fancy homes. But it's at the point where Black voters in Chicago, they're mobilizing and they're trying to turn Chicago red because the Black community is fed up with Chicago being a sanctuary city and how the needs of migrants are constantly being put ahead of the needs of the city's residents. And this effort is being led by Cata Truss and Mark Carter. And these two did an interview a couple weeks ago on Fox, and they were talking about how the Democratic Party isn't standing up for the people that supported them. No surprise. And they basically said, like, hey, we know the Republican Party has issues, but it's better than the Democrat Party. We have to do something. And it's important for the citizens of Chicago to turn the city red. And one of the comments Carter made was, quote, we see that the Democratic Party has decided to do away with us, and so we are fine with that, and we're going to do away with them, end quote. And good on them. Like, I hope the people of Chicago do finally realize that the Democrat Party does nothing but hold minorities down. It's crazy.
I would love to see, like, if they actually vote for Trump or if they're going to vote Democrat still, because it's like these people say that, but then they turn around and at, last minute, they vote for the same Democrats that have done nothing for them. So
Well,
I am curious to see what happens there.
well, I'm going to guess that if it's Michelle Obama, that's going to be a whole other story. But
Yeah.
that's not today's podcast. So, but in your state, Stephanie, there have been reports of increased gang activity from this totally violent criminal syndicate called Trend Aragua. I guess it's like the largest gang in Venezuela. And I was reading an article in the Messenger about how there was a recent gang murder of this retired Venezuelan police officer killed in Miami. And he was killed by a 23-year-old Venezuelan migrant. And they're saying it's like unclear when or how he came into the country. But hundreds of thousands of Venezuelans have come into the United States over the past few years. And I don't know if you remember this, but back in December, Biden granted all these hundreds of thousands of illegal migrants temporary legal status. And reportedly, at least 40 members of this violent criminal gang were detained by Border Patrol between October of 22 and October of 23. And Venezuelan security I can't speak again as usual, expert Javier Ignacio Mayorga, he told the Herald that they've been hearing that members of this gang had left Colombia and walked all the way to the United States. And if 40 of these gang members were detained, how many others got through the fucking border illegally?
Right.
Because we're
And
seeing this rampant increase in crime everywhere.
well, and I'm sure they didn't walk all the way to the US. It was probably the Clinton Foundation that bussed them over because we know they do that in South America. But yeah, I had heard that there were Florida sheriffs that did a press conference that were telling everyone that if you feel comfortable, you should carry a gun and know how to use it and be prepared to use it because of this problem that's happening. And that's scary when the cops are like encouraging citizens to be prepared to shoot, you know?
Yeah, no kidding.
Crazy.
And I didn't find anything on this, but my mom had mentioned to me some report came out that the American Red Cross is helping with this effort to get these people across the border as well. And they're giving them like maps and documents that lead them to resources in the United States. So
Oh,
there's
that's
that.
great.
Yeah. And then here's another concerning story, not on the migrant topic, but on the China topic. So the Washington Free Beacon reported on Wednesday that the US State Department had this congressionally mandated report about threats posed to the United States by the CCP. And they outsourced this report to a group of undergrad college students. So one of the parameters of the National Defense Authorization Act that came into play in 2023 included the State Department having to produce a report on the CCP's efforts to censor and intimidate Americans. And reportedly, the State Department was required to enter into some kind of agreement with a qualified research entity independent of the State Department to write the report. And the purpose of the report was to make suggestions to Congress on how to assess and deal with these foreign threats. Well, it turns out the report was written by 6 undergrad students from James Madison University. And according to the Daily Caller, even though the students study international affairs or political relations, only one of them had any kind of emphasis on Chinese affairs. And the State Department admitted that they had the students write the report independently through the Diplomacy Lab project, but they didn't select the authors or exercise any kind of editorial authority over the report. So basically what they're saying is they're doling out sensitive information to undergrad students, right? And so I love the way Senator Ted Cruz responded. And he said, quote, "This report confirms again that the Biden admin is simply unserious about confronting the full range of threats posed by the CCP. No doubt these students are talented, but this report is literally the opposite of adults being back in charge. The CCP spends billions on propaganda and censorship with the goal of controlling what Americans see, hear, and ultimately think. These activities pose an acute national security risk to Americans," end quote.
Yeah.
And on top of that, they're like, we know how fucked up college students are these days, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I thought this one was a little concerning.
Oh my gosh. Well, yeah, it is absolutely concerning. And unfortunately, the CCP isn't the only adversary that we need to be worried about because they're all, targeting us right now because of our weak president. But now, and this is just so like unbelievable, but it's true, there are reports that Putin signed a decree to look into the sale of Alaska, asserting
What?
that it should still be Russian territory. So according to a Fox News article, the Russian state media announced that Putin allocated funds to cover, quote, "the process of searching the real estate property owned by the Russian Federation, the former Russian Empire, the former USSR, as well as for due registration of property rights and legal protection of this property," end quote. So the State Department deputy spokesperson, Vedant Patel, responded by saying, quote, "Let me just understand that he signed something today that said that the sale of Alaska is illegitimate. Well, I speak for all of us in the U.S. government to say that certainly he is not getting it back," end quote. Okay, so like I'm reading this and I'm thinking, tensions are high right now. They're doing this military drill in response to the threat of Russia. Like I think this deserves a little bit more. Like, can we know a little bit more? Because they're totally like brushing it off. But it's like I'm looking at it thinking, okay, why is he bringing this up now? Like, is Putin looking for a specific reason to start a war with the United States? Like, this, you know what I mean? It's a little alarming when he's like trying to claim that Alaska could be part of Russia and that they are like should have it because that's what he did to Ukraine. And look at what is happening over there right now. Is that crazy?
Yeah, I think he needs to get his handle on Ukraine first.
No kidding. I'm like, what in the actual, like, this is just crazy. And then this is like super concerning. Okay, so you've probably seen it. There's this viral video going around all social media channels, and it's this Middle Eastern man threatening a cameraman when the cameraman asked where he was from, like as he was crossing the border. So I'm gonna play a clip. Hopefully you can hear it. It might be a little muffled, but let's try it out here.
By my face, by the way. You are smart enough, you will know who I am. But you are really not smart enough to know who I am. But soon you're gonna know who I am. Very.
So I know that was really muffled, but he's basically like getting agitated with the cameraman. And he says, "You're not smart enough to know who I am. Look at my face. If you were smart enough, you would know who I am. And pretty soon you're going to know who I am." Right. So that's kind of concerning when someone, is coming into our country illegally and says something like that. Well, first responders media posted a photo of the man who is allegedly named Mavsum Samadov. And it turns out that he was the chairman of the Islamic Party of Azerbaijan. I have no idea if I said that right. But no mainstream news nor government has confirmed that this is the same man that's in this video that crossed the border and made that threat. But I can tell you they look identical when looking at the photo and looking at this guy in the video. And according to the United States Commission on International Religious Freedom, Samadov was sentenced to 12 years in prison in 2011 for, quote, preparing a crime, preparing terrorism committed on preliminary arrangement by group of persons, by organized group or criminal community, preparing terrorism committed with application of firearms or subjects used as weapon, illegally purchasing, transferring, selling, storing, transporting, and carrying firearms, accessories, supplies, and explosives committed by organized group, and actions directed on violent capture power or violent deduction power. So, like, those are pretty serious charges. This guy went to prison for 12 years, and this is no surprise to me whatsoever. Like, of course, people like this are coming over the open border. The question is, how many are already here? I know we asked that question on damn near every episode, but this guy was dumb enough to go on camera and start making threats. But I'm sure that there's so many that just quietly slip through the open border completely undetected.
Yeah, but is it dumb enough or is it bold enough?
Right.
Because I think at this point, like, they don't give a fuck anymore
No.
because they are getting over here. They have no problem coming over. They don't even have to try to hide coming over at this point. So why should they be quiet about it?
Right. Yeah, they have no respect for this country. They certainly don't fear the Biden administration. So, yeah, exactly. You're totally right. So, along with talking about the border, we can't end the episode without updating you guys on the latest with the showdown of Governor Abbott versus Biden. So, in our last episode, we mentioned how the Supreme Court was now allowing the Biden administration and Border Patrol to remove the razor wire at the border. Well, Governor Abbott is standing his ground. And he released a statement where he said, quote, the Biden administration's failure to protect each state against invasion, as stated in Article 4, Section 4 of the Constitution, has triggered Article 1, Clause 3, which reserves to this state the right of self-defense. For these reasons, I have already declared an invasion under Article 1, Clause 3 to invoke Texas's constitutional authority to defend and protect itself. That authority is the supreme law of the land and supersedes any federal statutes to the contrary. Texas National Guard, the Texas Department of Public Safety, and other Texas personnel are acting on that authority, as well as state law, to secure the Texas border, end quote. Well, damn, good for him for standing up to the regime. I think it's like very brave for him to do that. And Ted Cruz, who's senator of Texas, did a great response to this in a press conference. So I want to play that real quick for you guys.
Questions? Yes. I have one Senator Cruz actually about Texas. The Department of Homeland Security just sent another letter again demanding access to Shelby Park. Texas is not evacuating, as you know, instead deploying even more razor wire. Do you think this will ultimately lead to a showdown between the federal border patrol agents and the national guard in Texas?
Listen, I'm proud of the great state of Texas. I'm proud of our governor. I'm proud of our state legislature because they're stepping up and defending our state from invasion. Listen, the mayor of a bunch of blue cities, the governors of a bunch of blue states have declared illegal immigration emergencies in their states. That's true in New York. That's true in Boston. That's true in Massachusetts. That's true in Chicago. That's true in LA. Eric Adams, the liberal Democrat in New York, has said illegal immigration is destroying New York City. That's 110,000 people are destroying New York City. I agree with him. But if 110,000 people are destroying New York City, what the hell do you think 9.6 million people are doing to Texas and the other states on the southern border? And so Texas is stepping up to defend our state. I'm glad we are. But the reason Texas is doing so is because Joe Biden and Chuck Schumer and the Democrats affirmatively want this invasion. By the way, you want to know why negotiating with these guys, why they're doing it in such bad faith? They are today, as you pointed out. Joe Biden is litigating against the state of Texas to try to stop Texas from securing the border. Joseph Robinette Biden Jr. is the greatest friend the Mexican drug cartels have ever had. He is the greatest financial benefactor the Mexican drug cartels have ever had. He is the single largest human trafficker in history. Now, that may sound like hyperbole, but those 9.6 million people, when they come over and turn themselves in, they tell the Border Patrol agents, I want to go to the following city, and they pick a city. And Joe Biden puts them on planes and puts them on buses and sends them to every city in America. And Joe Biden is the last mile of the human trafficking network. So, yes, Biden is fighting ferociously to stop Texas from defending ourselves. He is wrong. But it shows that Biden wants this. And the only thing Biden wants next is to make Ron Johnson have to buy a bigger poster board because the chart goes higher.
Mic drop. That was awesome. Like, great response.
Well, I want to play a clip too. And this is like the White House's response, right? So this is an exchange between Peter Doocy and the White House spokesperson, John Kirby. And listen to what an asshole Kirby is in this clip. He's snarky. It's like your quintessential like Biden response. And it just speaks to the usual Biden bullshit. If I can play it.
John, why are you guys making it easier for people to enter the country illegally?
We are. Why do you think we are?
Well, you guys sued to cut razor wire that was put in place by Texas officials.
So that the Border Patrol could actually do their jobs, but keep going.
Well, you won in court. So now what? The Border Patrol Union president is saying the Supreme Court's decision is going to undoubtedly encourage more illegal immigration. Do you guys know better than the Border Patrol Union?
The Border Patrol needed access, and that's why we sued to get rid of that razor wire so that they could do their jobs. And you know what would also help them do their jobs, Peter? More Border Patrol agents. There's an idea. And if you go back to the supplemental request that we put in, there's money in there for some 1,300 additional Border Patrol agents. We want to help them do their jobs. We want to give them more resources. And the answer we keep getting back from House Republicans is no, no, no.
Does razor wire work?
Does razor wire work for what? Does it work for the Border Patrol to allow them to have the access they need to be able to better process people that are trying to get across the border? I don't think so, and that's why we asked for it to be removed.
But what is the president's plan? This is happening just weeks after 300,000 people came into this country over the southern border illegally. The razor wire officials down there think was keeping some of them out. And you guys just sued and won to remove it.
On behalf of the Border Patrol, who needed to have better access to it. Look, let me go back to your other question. And I know I'm running short on time, so I won't filibuster here. But what's the plan? Please look at the stuff we put forward. The immigration reform legislation that the president put forward on day one. The work we're doing in the region. Just last week, we had Mexican officials here to talk about how together we have and will continue to try to stem the flow of migrants. You mentioned the numbers. No question there's a lot of people trying to make that journey, but it's not just to the United States, it's to other countries in the world, in the region. We're seeing historic movement. Not since World War II have we seen this many people on the move in this hemisphere. And the Mexicans are really stepping up and trying to do more on their southern border to keep that flow going north lower. And we have seen in recent weeks some success at that. The idea that we don't have a plan or a strategy or we're not taking this seriously is just not borne out by the facts. And, again, if the folks on the House Republican side are serious about border security, and they claim they are, then they should act on the supplemental request. And, let's negotiate this in good faith. The president has said he's willing to make compromises. He's willing to negotiate in good faith. So let's have that discussion.
Thank you. Israel has.
Like, I just can't with these people.
They're literally trying to blame the border crisis on Republicans now.
Yeah.
Like, good luck with that. No one is going to buy that. I'm sorry. Like, idiots. No one is going to fall for that.
If you actually see the clip when Peter Ducey first asks him, like, okay, so you won this lawsuit, like, what now? It's very clear, like, Kirby has no fucking answer. So there was like that few seconds of silence. So then Peter Ducey comes in with another question. But it's like, I know I've said this before, but I don't know how he can get up there. I don't know how KJP can get up there. I don't know how Biden can speak. I don't know how any of these motherfuckers can stand up there and lie through their teeth. And like, they've convinced themselves. I mean, it's appalling to me.
I know. It's so aggravating, but I mean, everyone can see right through that. Like, no one is going to listen to that guy and be like, oh, yeah, you know what? He's right. Like, all it's doing is showing that they're horrible people. I mean, like, they flat out are like trying to destroy this country. That's what that whole exchange showed everybody.
Yeah. But you know what I love about Texas? Not only did Abbott basically tell Biden to fuck off, but in defiance of the Supreme Court ruling, he's having the Texas National Guard install more razor wire.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That is amazing.
But I think you were right last week when you mentioned, like, could this be leading to some kind of civil war? Because the DHS is responding to Abbott having more razor wire put up by saying that Republicans are defying the Supreme Court and they don't believe in democracy anymore, and that Republicans are dangerous and must be defeated.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely amping up, and I think could turn into that. And it's interesting because we're going to be having, almost everyone, all of our military over in Europe for this drill, this Project Defender, or whatever the hell they're calling it. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But I mean, I think that Abbott is doing the right thing. I mean, like he said, he's protecting his border in Texas from invasion. And you even have Democrat mayors agreeing that this is a problem. We can't take any more people. So, I mean, Kirby and KJP and Biden, they can say all this nonsense all they want. But I think that, when you have 78% of Americans all agreeing that this is a problem, it doesn't matter what they say. No one's buying it.
So no, it's just the sarcasm. You listen to KJP, it's just, they couldn't give a fuck, either of them. Like, that clip with John Kirby was classic. Like, well, just that snarky, arrogant, we don't fucking care what you think. We're going to do what we want to do.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, I'm watching it every day because, like, this is escalating and it could turn into a civil war. I mean, we just don't know. It kind of depends, but I mean, he's standing his ground. So we'll keep everyone posted on that. It's gonna be interesting. 2024 is off to a rocky, crazy start. No surprise there. But yeah, we'll keep everyone posted. And everyone have a great weekend. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you back here on Monday. If you're sick of all the crazy shit going on in our country and you want to express your support and patriotism for the show, head on over to our Etsy store at UO Patriot Chicks and check out our new stickers. The link can also be found on our website. If you love the show and you want exclusive episodes, support the podcast and join the conversation by becoming a member of our Patreon community. We'll be posting weekly member-only podcast episodes and content that isn't available on the weekly podcast. Every Patreon member will also get a free Unapologetically Outspoken sticker and updates about our new sticker release before they're made public. And be sure to follow us on TikTok at Unapologetically Outspoken. And if you haven't done so already, please rate and review the podcast. The more you support us, the more people we can reach. So help us spread the word.